everyone, welcome. We're right here at Hyatts 2024 where we're speaking with industry stalwarts to understand how Indian hospitality sector is booming and more importantly how the mega MNCs are looking at tapping into this opportunity as well. And to talk to me just about that, I have with me Mark Hoplamazian, the President and CEO at Hyatt International, joining us. Hi Mark, thank you for speaking with ET Now.
It's great to be here with you. Thank you.
Okay, it's been a couple of years that you haven't visited India. How's been the mood like at Hyatts 2024? What's been your reading? How is it different from, let's say, a couple of years to now?
I think the difference really is that we've got a lot of the questions that were present 2 years ago with respect to COVID recovery are now answered. Secondly, I think the performance has been so extraordinary that it's plain to see and obvious to everyone.
Yeah, but do you think India really has that potential? Because a lot has been talked about it, but do you really see that converting into numbers as well in terms of actual occupancy? And do you really think India can be one of the top 3 markets?
Yes. First of all, I know it can translate into the actual numbers because it has. I think our RevPAR last year was up 33%, and year to date it's up in the mid-teens. So the compounding effect of growth is obvious to see. It's very clear. Secondly, the growth has been led by leisure travel and mostly domestic leisure travel. And the difference between the amount of money spent on domestic leisure travel versus inbound leisure travel is something like 7 to 1. So significant activity amongst Indians who are traveling within India, discovering their own country in some ways. And between the secular growth of the economy and the spending power of the Indian population, I think there's tremendous tailwind, a lot of wind in the sails of the industry that will propel it for many years to come.
So you're saying it's not like a bump up, let's say that revenge travel phase which was there post-COVID, or suddenly a new fad. You're saying that this is a structural boom which is here to stay, at least for the medium term.
There's no question. I think we've already seen now several years of this kind of growth in the U.S., and we're now just beginning to see it in India. The other thing is, when you look at it, when you go back to pre-COVID times till now, and you look at the total aggregate increase in, say, ADRs or RevPAR, it's not extraordinary. It's not like it's growing at an outrageously high level. If you compound it over time, it's still below 5% per year in terms of compounding. So we're not talking about being something that seems out of whack. Secondly, supply growth has been pretty limited. Mm-hmm. Demand is increasing and supply growth has been limited. Demand will continue to increase. And so that's an equation for a very good environment.
You've given me a lot of thought, but let me scratch those points individually. You say, of course, that demand is outpacing supply, but I've not read the kind of capex announcements or acquisitions as well as room additions in the last 12 months as perhaps in a lot of years earlier. Do you think at some point of time, maybe not of course immediately, but maybe 2 to 3 years further on, the supply will be a bit higher than the demand growth, or not really?
Even if it grows to be higher than demand growth, it's catching up to what the demand has been compounding at. But even just getting to the point where it matches demand growth would be a good thing. And I think right now, one of the things that's been an issue, and this is true in India for over a long period of time, is capital formation, availability of debt, and the cost of debt, which still remains somewhat high.
Okay, point taken. But you talked about how domestic leisure is, of course, picking up, and that category is doing very well. What about business, and what about international tourism? Do you think, in terms of the international tourists coming to India, that's back to the pre-COVID levels?
No, it's not, and it will be. I think people will come again. I also think that a lot of people who haven't discovered India yet will be coming. But business travel within the country has grown enormously. Inbound international business travel is picking up. So yeah, I think overall the demand drivers among the main areas, which is meetings and incentive trips and conventions and so forth, is strong and growing. Leisure is leading it. And individual business travel is coming. It's coming back.
Talking about discovering India, have you managed to do that in your trips, or is it going to be a very short trip time and not possible for leisure at all?
Well, yeah, this trip is very short, but yes, I have. I've spent a lot of time in India, and I brought my entire family here for about 2 weeks 3 years ago, 4 years before the pandemic, so 5 years ago, and we discovered Rajasthan together. So it was a wonderful time together. One of my children spent a year living in Rajasthan.
Oh, wow.
So we were the beneficiaries because she spent some time at the very tail end learning Rajasthani cooking. So every time she's home, we have a great Indian meal, which is really pretty wonderful.
That's interesting, because my hometown or my home state is Rajasthan, so I can probably get those vibes and all those foods that you're talking about. Yes. Coming back to business as well, what are you doing to tap into this opportunity? Because, of course, there has been a lot of announcement for you as well in terms of expansion, but break it down for me in terms of the brands that you're getting to India, the locations that you're looking at tapping in.
Yeah, I think first of all, in terms of locations, we have 50 hotels open currently. We have another 50 hotels in the pipeline. And in that 50 hotels that are opening in the future, we are covering 28 new markets in the country. To me, that's a big indicator that since we're meeting demand where it exists, that demand is expanding across more markets, which I think is great. Primarily because there's so much to discover in India, right? So, and a lot of it is leisure driven. Excuse me. So that's the first thing I would say, and I think that's a very good sign. Secondly, in terms of our brand portfolio, we have, I think, 9 brands in India today, and the opportunity to bring many more. The most recent brand opening that we had is JDV by Hyatt, the Royal Hotel. I'm very excited about that property. I haven't seen it yet, but I plan to. Not this trip, but I will get there. And we've also opened more hotels in spiritual destinations, and because spiritual tourism is very, very important, and also something that's very different and very compelling here in India.
Yeah, so that's what the new trend is. It's not just business travel or just travel for the sake of it. People are also looking for experiential travel, right? Spiritual being one of them. In terms of adding experiences as well, what's Hyatt doing about that?
It's primarily focused on well-being. Of course, for us to come to India and start offering well-being practices that are largely based on historical Indian-derived well-being practices is a little funny, but it does have to be brought to life in the right way. But yes, I think that well-being is actually a global trend and phenomenon, and we are bringing many new practices that we have honed and really created products around. Primarily derived from, we have a brand called Miraval. It's a very high-end destination spa and well-being brand, and they have a very long history. It's over 40 years old, and we've derived a lot of learning from them, and are bringing quite a few of those practices here to India.
But since you talked about how you're coming up in new locations and the kind of brands you're getting to India, is there a tilt towards, a particular category versus the other? What I'm trying to get here is let's say business picking up more, and is that what you're going to focus on, let's say for the medium term, or you're going to do those resorts and the high-end luxury spaces that you're talking about, or is it a very based mix that you are looking at tapping into the Indian opportunity? I
personally think that leisure is probably the #1 focus and priority right now. I'm not that it would be large-scale resorts. There will be some, but there will also be smaller boutique hotels, some very wonderful lifestyle properties that are even in urban locations that just have a leisure feel to them, and people are going there for a holiday or for a visit as opposed to a meeting. So I think purpose of visit is how I think about it. What's the purpose of the travel itself? So I think we have a lot more to do in leisure. Pretty much across the whole country.
Asset light versus asset heavy is kind of a debate that always keeps on going in the hospitality industry, and I think you were tilting a lot towards asset light with a bit of a divestment happening at the global level as well. In India, what's the plan? Are you going to come directly into India, or are you going to come through partnerships? You've had successful partnerships earlier as well. What's the way forward on that?
Yeah, I think if you look at the other multinational businesses that we compete with, it's unambiguous that we largest investment in properties in India than any of the others through our JV in Juniper, which we've been involved with for over 20 years. So to me, we know what it's like to be a property owner in India very, very, very well. It actually makes us better managers of hotels because we have walked in the shoes of our own owners.
Owners and know.
Yes. So I think us, we've already proven that we're prepared to put capital behind our effort in India, and that's a real commitment. And I've been a big believer in India and the future of India since I've been in my position now for over 17 years. I've been wrong for a lot of that because it's been difficult. It's been a difficult market.
Yes.
The fact that we have, a relatively short period of time now where it's been really, really strong is great. I'm celebrating it. It's just not completely reflective of what reality is over a longer period of time.
And just to wrap up the conversation, talk to me about what is going to be the next a big travel trend, perhaps what you are watching out for globally, or anything specific in the hospitality industry that you're watching out for.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier well-being. I think well-being is something that became not just a nice to have, but something that on which a lot of focus was brought during the pandemic, and broader than physical well-being. This is not the era of spa and fitness. It's the era of mindfulness and consciousness and presence, of reflection, of doing things that are good for your emotional health, for your psychological health, not just for your physical health. And I think that is going to continue to be an area of focus for everybody. There are a lot of stresses in the world, and how people deal with them and manage through them is varied. And I also believe that it's fulfilling. You end up with a ability to connect with others in a more powerful way, and therefore I think it's really good for the soul. And so I think that will be a key mega trend over the years to come.
Okay, with that, I'll let you go. Thanks so much, Mark, for making time and speaking with us, and hopefully you get more time in India during the next visit.
I hope so too. Thank you so much.